Okay, this is it. Good morning, by the way. Happy to see you. Happy to be here with you. I'm going to go last today. I'm not. It's you go first. If you're anything that you want to talk to me about, if there's any questions you have that have burning questions, if there's anything you want to say at all, this is the time to do so. Because when you're done, I'm going to talk and then I'm going to go. Okay? Okay. There's somebody. My friend John, whose name always escapes me. Good morning, John. Good morning.
I don't know if this is burning, but
doesn't matter.
It's an observation, and it's not about me. It's an observation of you, because somehow I'm learning something about me by looking at you. You were a machinist, right?
Yeah, I was.
I don't know what you machined, but I assume that it had to do with close tolerances and stuff.
Yeah, I ended up actually working on the Minuteman and the Space Shuttle program.
I figured as much.
Running a jig bore.
And you also blew up buildings.
I did blow up buildings.
And I just made the connection this morning on the way back over here. Well, how perfect that is. You know, you say your words are clubs. They're not clubs. These are fine-tuned things that touch and hold people. And hold me, okay? Hold me. And I recognize them as being very fine-tuned. And close tolerances, very close tolerances. But what they do is blow the hell out of things. You know, you start to understand.
That's funny.
Yeah. You know, and I can see that in you. I just can't see me. I can't see how what I've done, you know, my life seems to be just a bunch of unrelated stuff, all geared towards survival, you know, out of fear, you know.
That's the same for me.
I'm sure it is, but boy, you've pulled it together, man.
That was just a stroke of luck, but now the luck has come to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I don't have a clear picture yet of how these pieces all work, but I assume they must. Yeah. You know,
I don't have a clear picture of how the pieces all work either. Okay? I don't have a clear picture of how this life works. I don't have a clear picture of how it fits in with the universe. I don't have a clear picture of how it fits in with my relationship with you. But I have long ago lost any need to have such a clear picture. It seems to me that every moment speaks for itself, and that it's not up to me to, except in the case of practical necessities and so forth, it's not up to me to try to figure out what's going on. It's up to me only to just see what's going on. And sometimes it seems to make sense, and sometimes it doesn't seem to make sense. It is my experience that my words are like dull clubs that don't cut through anything. But my attention is on trying to refine and simplify and make my words be heard, you know, and what I try to convey with them to be conveyed. But other than that, I don't pay much attention to the vicissitudes, the changefulness of life, and the way things come and go, and the way sometimes even here the residue of the life of being driven by fear and the creation of the apparatus that serves that. You know, this is like an autoimmune disease, really. The apparatus that comes into being has only one purpose, and that is to protect you and serve you. It's as it happens in this kind of birth trauma. Its main job is to serve you and protect you. its main job actually in reality is to be your face and the expression of your present reality and the receiver of everything else. But it's been hijacked by this birth trauma, by this, and so that what is intended to be healthy and useful and protective, really, and so forth, has turned into its opposite. It's like an autoimmune disease. It's like an allergy, except more like AIDS, really, I think. And I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, I'm very happy to hear that I have had any effect on you whatsoever. I'm very happy to hear that you can, like, to me, if you hear and follow what it is that I'm trying to convey, that's because you're listening. It's not because of my facility, it's because of your willingness to listen. And that's what I had to say.
Do you remember Tomas from last year?
Yes, I do.
I went to visit him last night. He couldn't make the retreat. He's an artist and is developing an apparatus with mirrors that allow him to see what he's seeing from.
That's very good. I hope I get a chance to see this apparatus.
I'm sure you will. He's using his skills and his history, his evolution with purpose. I guess that's the missing link for me. I've not yet recognized what it is, that how this can, now that the fear is subsiding, not that it's gone, but subsiding.
I tell you that the way your life unfolds, you really don't have anything to say about, and it will be perfect, and it will clarify itself over time. I find myself astonished that this life has ended up here. I mean, even in the aftermath of having broken the grip of fear in this life, I'm still astonished that it has ended up here. This is not what I intended. And as I've talked about this, I really did not want to do this. I was opposed to it. I had no interest in it, and it just took me and refused to bend to my opinion about what should be. And this is an opinion that arose in a mind that was pretty much free of that existential fear. Because the mind itself is the apparatus itself, and it is ill-equipped to, in fact, it has no power to determine the way in which the life will unfold. It has no power to determine what you're going to do. Its power is to see and gradually understand what's actually happening. Okay? Now, I tell you that you can have no idea what the course of this life may be. You may end up just sitting in the woods and listening to the birds, or investigating ornithology, or you just don't know. The key thing is the freedom from fear, and then everything else unfolds in its natural way, what I'm going to call the natural state. Everything else unfolds naturally. And you may even buck against it, and like I have, and say, that's not right, that's not going to happen. But as time goes by, you'll see, and you'll understand exactly what course this life is embarked upon. And your skillfulness will add to it and make it more effective.
I trust that.
Yes.
not to use that word faith, but yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, we part of the reason it's natural for us to trust the flow of life. It's natural. And we don't because we're scared to death. That's just that simple. The trust is not a choice, right? It's not something that you choose to, it's some quality that you can somehow graft on to the apparatus of personality. The trust is your natural state. And because it's obvious, when it is obvious you have nothing to say about it, and it's obvious that things are unfolding quite well without your input into them, and you'll see. Trust is natural. It's not something you can do or not do. I think that I have a kind of a very fluid model in my mind of life's course and how it works and everything. And I find that of all of the things that I've read and all of the things that I've known, that the closest to how I see life to be is the teachings of the Tao. Now, like all teachings, they have this poison pill within them, which is the poison of understanding being the road to liberation. And there's nothing you can do about that, right? But the actual expression of how life unfolds is very clear there, and very uncomplicated and very simple. So I say that just so I don't have to reinvent the wheel here, and it's all going to work out fine. If we can just keep humans from being wiped off the face of the planet. And it's still going to work out fine, it just won't work out for us.
And I like these things.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I like the fact that it's not so easy to see what it is.
Yeah, I like that too. Thank you, John.
Seems like a metaphor of some kind. Okay. Anybody else? Yes. Tinka? What is that stuff?
That thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's called ragach in my language.
Okay. Carob. Oh, is that what it is? Oh. Yeah. Ah, cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, John mentioned looking at you. So I know you tell us, I can't help you, don't look at me. Look at yourself. And yes, that is so. Like finding the guru within, nothing will happen otherwise. But looking at you is almost just as good.
I beg to differ.
Well, it is, I don't know. I want to ask you what you think about this. Like relation with a teacher and the presence of teacher. I can, when you talked about Ramana, and I can see very well why those people would want to hang
lionize
around
him, yeah. And lionize him and make him into a saint and a god and so forth. I can see it too, but
I don't think it's not important. I can see how his presence, just be in presence of somebody who is realized, the presence of that mood and state, or can
Be encouraging.
inspire, yes,
It
but
can be
also
encouraging.
inspire that in you. It is contagious while you're there. Or,
I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
But the most value is the encouragement. And and in the kind of broken down literality of encouragement. Because this takes courage. Really does. It takes courage.
right, yes.
And encouragement is to encourage courage. You know.
Right, yes. But also, you know, just seeing it or being in its presence, it's, to me, it's even more than words. Like even more than you say is how you are. So that is what speaks to me.
Yes, it can speak to you, and I'm really I'm not trying to be difficult here, okay?
Yeah.
Because I understand what you're saying, but I want to be sure that I understand what you're saying. That's the only thing here.
Yeah.
The problem, it is the case that being in the presence of someone who is free of fear
Yeah.
is a good experience, and it is encouraging, and it promotes some optimism within the aspirant. But it has also, that's another poison pill within it, and that's the kind of addiction to that state of being in the presence of someone who's free of fear, and the belief that the experience that arises from that
Yeah.
is what we are seeking.
Right.
And it's not. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why, to me, it's more important to point to the uselessness of that than it is to encourage the sweetness of that.
Yeah, I understand. And when they say, you know, even now that Ramana is not there anymore, he is still present. I mean, it's not just empty words, right? It's,
No, it's not just empty words,
Yeah.
but they are kind of beside the point.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
except to the extent that they provide us with encouragement and optimism. You know, a conviction that if Ramana can do this, and Ramana was confused, don't let anybody say differently. If Ramana can do this, if Nisargadatta can do this, if John Sherman can do this, I can do this. It's not like, well, you see what I'm saying.
Yeah. But there is something about this, you know, you're by yourself, you're alone. It's true, right?
Yes, you are.
And at the same time, it feels like, I don't know, but one wishes one wasn't. One was a part of this. Like now, I don't want to go home. Or
Yeah, but that's just like, that's part of being alive as a human being. That's part of the characteristics and the characteristics of human persona. Part of it is the love of one another. Part of it is the response to being in a circumstance like this, right? And that can be quite can produce a sweet kind of sorrow when the experience is departing. But that too is what you're here to see. It's not something that needs to be dispensed with, and it's not something that needs to be turned from. It's just what you're here to see. It's part of this parade of phenomena that is the miracle of existence, right? And it is the predispositions of the individual that interpret a sensation coming in to be this or that or the other thing. The truth is that all sensation is the same, really. But so it's a sweetness. It's not a problem, and it'll pass.
right, yes.
But that's what I'm saying is that's not you.
Yes.
That's your face,
I
right?
understand. Yes. And in a way, the last thing you said relates to something I want to say in the first place. And I don't know how helpful it may be to people or if it's useful for anything, but again, there are those things that you say that resonate very strongly and that are helpful to me, that I feel like, yes, and can hold on to. So yesterday you said that all experience ends in you. So that was one of those things. Me being, I'm so addicted to mindfulness. That's my religion. And then, when I sit in meditation or do walking meditation, it is more inwardly. But then, being mindful in just in everyday life, all the time, it is, subject object. I'm watching. I'm observing what's going on, well, in me, but still, it's external. It's out there. And yeah, I still do it the same way. But now, yesterday for that one time, because you said that, like, all experience ends in you, it had this, I could see it that way.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm observing, I am mindful of things, but I'm also following them ending in me.
Uh-huh. That's very good.
Which I don't know what it does, but it makes the connection. It
certainly draws your attention inward rather than to the display, the array of phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that we can hope for, is for things that are helpful in this work. I'm very happy. That's very cool. I like that.
Yeah. I was really.
I am always preaching mindfulness, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I may not be preaching it overtly, but I'm always preaching mindfulness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If there's one quasi-spiritual practice that is helpful here, it's the practice of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And really it is. I often, in fact, I even have it on the website. I encourage people to practice a simple mindfulness meditation just to get some sanity about what's happening in their mind and what the beam of attention can do. So I have the simple mindfulness meditation that's watching the breath and counting the breath and returning to that when you depart from it and so forth. Mm-hmm. Because I think that that's very helpful. I think we are a superstitious bunch, and we are always ready to assign some like metaphysical cause to things. And and really is really true within the spiritual community that's the case. We tend to be drawn to magical thinking and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And but this is a practical matter we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about encouraging states or anything like that. We're talking about learning practically how to direct our attention inward in a place that it just isn't natural for it to go. Mm-hmm. So that's why the development of mindfulness serves that in a practical way, not not in a way of.
Yes.
Are you following me?
Yes, yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Tinka. It's been a real pleasure to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
Anybody else? Can you get over here? Here, let me just bring you the microphone, okay? Okay. No, he's coming. He's coming.
Excuse me. the last few days I've been thinking of some things, some insights. One insight more than others has struck me, and it came from something that you said a couple of days ago, which kind of stuck. You said something to the effect of, well, if you want to, not you want to, but, well, when you die, that's the way to get rid of the personality. And I thought to myself, how do you know? You're not dead. And but this is not what I want to talk about. But it supports what I want to talk about. And then I kind of backed up to this idea of, is there some greater knowledge that people get about life and death and the mechanisms and the ways and workings of the universe that have plumbed the depths of self and understanding? And along this track, in readings that I do at night, for inspiration, reading some books on Ramana and stuff like that, and I was looking at the amount of energy that I was looking at the amount that I take my eye off the ball. And I really like the term you use, beside the point. Questions about life and death, questions about what Ramana, did he have a personality, did he have a dead mind, questions about what this teacher did when this is constantly taking my eye off the ball.
That's right. It's beside the point.
It is beside the point. This stuff has no bearing towards looking at myself.
That's right. That's right.
And I look at, I see when I am doing good work, meaning just there, just looking at myself to the exclusion of all the other conceptual stuff, and when I'm taking my eye off the ball. And I think, we generally don't have our eye on the ball for the most part. I mean, I think the mechanisms of our conceptual thinking just are constantly doing this. And for me, the insight that came is that I know when I'm doing good work. I know when I'm doing the work.
Yes, right.
And I just wanted to bring that up because there are important questions that people feel about, what this spiritual path is. I understand that, but having read so many spiritual books, been a Buddhist and this and that, and been on so many different retreats, I really see that there's just one thing to do.
That's right. That's right.
And come back to continually doing it.
That's right. But you also can see that the things that capture our attention are not a problem. Even, when fear departs, the mind still is concerned with things that are beside the point. But then they're not so much beside the point as just what you're here to see. That's all. The purpose of this practice is not to come to where you can abide in the direct experience of your nature. The abiding in the direct experience of your nature is a waste of time. Really, it is. The the beauty of life, the whole way in which life unfolds is amazing and gorgeous and magical and mystical and wild.
Isn't the abiding the looking?
No, looking, you can't abide. You can't.
Words.
Well, but words, words are all we have to work with, right? And abide carries the connotation of spending more time in a certain place or in a certain state. In the first place, you can't abide in you because you are you. That's one thing. And it is part of the spiritual disease to, and I'm not saying you do this, I just want to get clear on this between the two of us here, right? It's part of the spiritual disease to think that what we're talking about here has to do with shunning the world and abiding in this reality of your own nature. But my experience is that in the first place that's not possible for a couple of reasons. One being the kind of ontological absurdity of you abiding in you, right? But the other reason is because that's not what you're here for. The reason that this whole creature has taken birth is not to return to the slumber from which it awoke, but to see, to receive. That's all there is to this life, is seeing. Now, it is the case that when we are the slaves of this little bit, this fearfulness, this anxiety, this existential anxiety, it's true that we use the attractiveness of ideas and thoughts such as like what Ramana did, was he dead, was he alive, what happens after death and all of those things. We use those things, those thoughts, which just come to us. We can't think them and we can't unthink them. They just appear in our consciousness, in our mind. And we use those thoughts as distractions from the fear. So that, especially in a spiritually minded entity, the draw of the deep philosophical questions about the nature of existence and the nature of consciousness and all of that, the draw of those is where we go to hide. But when the fear is gone, when we are no longer compelled by the fear to do the stupid things we do, then even those things, they don't really, actually spiritual stuff doesn't really attract your attention anymore. It becomes kind of uninteresting. That's my experience. And the reason it becomes uninteresting is because the deepest and most profound and most nuanced speculations about the nature of existence and the nature of reality and so forth turn out to be inadequate. It's like they're just inadequate. Reality speaks for itself, and it speaks very plainly. And when we try to turn that into something that can be contained within human speech, human language, human understanding, and so forth, it just becomes washed of any real portent at all. I mean, when we are no longer driven to find a way out, no longer driven to find understanding, no longer driven to find a solution to the human predicament and so forth, then they're inadequate, they're tiny, they're impotent, really. And so that their interest kind of drains out of them. Because you see it yourself, which you always have. It is, I'm happy, like your insight is a true one. The insight that those things are a distraction and beside the point, that's the case. But there are many things that are distractions and beside the point. Pretty much anything is beside the point until you take this medicine and the fear of life departs. And it will not depart as a consequence of understanding anything. Will not depart as a consequence of even understanding it. It will depart as a consequence of this bringing the beam of your attention in direct contact with your actual nature. That fixes it, that cures it, that takes it away. It takes a while, but that takes it away. So the looking is not kind of an advanced spiritual technique. It's really kind of elementary, very unadvanced. Is that helpful?
It is. It is. It's two things for me. This taking of the medicine, the less distracted you are, the more medicine you take.
The more often you do it, but you can't stay there. And I'll tell you why I think you can't stay there. Now, like I say these things as if they were some established fact. But the things that I talk about, other than the looking, right? Other than the actual effect of the looking. And when I start talking about the looking, I get tongue-tied because it's too simple to talk about effectively, right? But everything but the looking, all the things that I speak about that have to do with how this came to pass and what the effects of it are and all of that, the apparatus of personality, all of that, that is what I see to be the case. But what I see to be the case isn't like the Word of God. It's just what I see to be the case. And I can speak about my reasons for seeing that to be the case. But it is absolutely beside the point of the looking itself. But I think I know where that comes from, right? I think I understand how things have come to pass the way they have. And I think I understand why it is that you cannot rest and abide in your own nature, beside the absurdity of it. I think I know the mechanism that makes that impossible. The mechanism that makes that impossible, or at least a way to speak of it intelligibly, is the fact that the beam of attention itself, the power to concentrate consciousness into a beam, right? The power to move that beam and so forth is part of the self-protective apparatus of the persona itself. It's not intended to look at you. It's intended to protect you. So that what it does and what attention is naturally drawn to things that seem either promising, threatening, or sometimes when attention is drawn to them, they reveal themselves to be indifferent and of no consequence. But what attention is always looking for is threat and promise. That's what it's there for. So when a thought arises that has this rich feel to it and density to it and so forth that seems to ring true and resonate in everything, it's natural for attention to go there and try to stay there. When phenomena arise that seem threatening and unpleasant, it's natural for attention to move there. But attention is always looking outward. Its purpose is to look outward. So now we try the unnatural act of harnessing attention and bringing it to bear, to turn inward to something that has no real characteristics. No, there's something up here that gets me going. Excuse me. So, and I think that's a useful way to reflect, to consider these things. So that if that's the case, then try that bringing attention inward to touch you can only last just like that, like a tenth of a second. Can only do that. Because there's no way that you can force attention to stay focused on something that has no real characteristics or interest to it. It's not its job. Its job is to protect you, not to look at you. So it is to be expected that in the effort to turn attention inward, the chances of actually having a conscious experience of your actual nature are slim, because it happens too fast, and because it's not what you're accustomed to looking for with your attention. It is the case that it is possible that, and I am familiar with it, what it feels like, it is certainly the case that as time goes on, or maybe even right away, I mean, I'm not really a good example of how this thing unfolds, because I'm the worst of the bunch of us. I really am the worst. I am the dumbest, and I really did really dumb things. But so it's possible that you can right away get that taste of a reality of your nature, but it doesn't taste like much. I mean, there's kind of a I don't even know how to say it, but it doesn't taste like much. It's undeniably you, and that's the only thing that can be said about it. And then it's gone. It seems like it's gone, because there you are, back in the world of thought and planning. And
that's in my experience. This is how it feels to me.
Yeah. But the thing is that since it's not something that is intended to promote understanding and to eradicate ignorance, that's not what it does.
No.
It doesn't produce understanding. It doesn't eradicate ignorance.
It doesn't produce anything.
It just nothing. It just fixes that. It just takes away that fear.
Well, maybe as a side effect. I mean, I've been showing up since 2006, and I feel a lot less fearful than I was back then. I mean, there's an ease to my life now that I
yes, and
never
that's
felt before.
That is a consequence of the looking. It really is. And the thing about it that's so difficult to talk about is that there's really nothing much to say about it. You know, I mean, you try to look, you may or may not get a sense that you have succeeded in actually touching your real nature. You may or may not. But you try to look, and that's all it takes. And that's the medicine. And it has its effect over time. And that's the effect that you would expect, that life seems easier. That's the way it begins to manifest itself. And as time goes on, and the residue and so forth of the fear that is represented by the self-destructive and ineffective and stupid things that the persona does, right, trying to protect you from nothing. As that residue begins to vanish, and it does, it just falls away and you don't even notice it. But as that residue begins to vanish, then over time, gradually, the magnificence of this life begins to reveal itself. But the beginning is just a kind of a rising peace of mind and ease of being and less antagonistic relationship with life, even with the stupid parts of life. So that's what I think is going on. And the thing about it is, since there is no way really to be skillful, you know, it really isn't. You can you can make yourself a little less distracted and so forth by mindfulness, as we were talking about, but there's really no way to do this skillfully, except there's only one thing to do, right? There's not a series of steps that you have to go through to get there. There's only one thing to do. And so that can happen without there being, even present at the time it's happening, a clear understanding of why you're doing it, or what the outcome will be, or even agreement with it. Doesn't even require agreement with it. I'm happy to see you, by the way.
Be here. Thanks.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
It's always helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, it's helpful.
It's amazing to me that I can spend so much time talking about, boy, so little a thing. Mike? But it's important, you know? It's important because I don't know that it's not important.
Just two quick things. Well, three. I kind of don't want to leave.
Me too.
Can we stay another week?
You can stay, but I won't be here.
No, it's been really enjoyable to be here. I was just thinking about my original attempt when I first came across this idea, and the silliness of trying to look for something that felt like me. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to explain that to people, and it's true. But really, I remember closing my eyes and like launching my attention back into this emptiness. It feels funny to say there's a lot of nothing in there, you know. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of, and I was getting frustrated. And then at one point, and it's hard to put this into words, but I opened my eyes and all of this sensation came in. And it was kind of like, the only way I can say it is that I couldn't find a place where I was, and I couldn't find a place where I was not in that split second, you know, and that has left an inkling of it.
Yes, but you see, let me tell you something. This is going to go against what you think to be the case. That experience was a result of your stupid efforts trying to launch your attention backward, determined to get a look at yourself. That wasn't you doing the looking. That was an effect of the looking. The looking doesn't produce anything in the moment. It doesn't even, for most of the time, it doesn't even produce an awareness that you've succeeded. Right? It's the intent. It's the effort that counts. It's not the actual, there's not, like, this is the hard thing to get across. The looking is not done to produce some new level of understanding. It doesn't do that. It just doesn't do that. And it does not wipe out any ignorance. It just doesn't do that. When those kind of things arise, it's not directly connected with the act of looking. It's directly connected with the natural state of being human, which is beginning to reveal itself as this poisonous vapor begins to disappear. And it's really hard to see that, really hard to hear that, it's really hard to say that. It just does not do it. It's like, if I hit my leg like that, right, there's, you know, the little kind of pleasant tingle of the slap, and the sound and all of that, and that I'm aware of. But that moment of hitting my leg produces nothing other than that little tingle of the slap and the noise and so forth. It has no effect whatsoever on my digestion or my heartbeat or the itch on the back of my neck here. Right? It has no effect on any of that. It's just an event that occurs and is gone. Its effect is much more indirect. Its effect is like the effect of antibiotics on an infection. It's indirect. It doesn't do anything directly. The insights and so forth that come, some of which will remain, some of which will be seen through, but these insights and these understandings that come in the course of the looking are just the operation of the human persona in its natural condition, and still containing a great deal of contamination, right? A great deal negative behavior patterns and negative ways of looking at things and wrong ways of understanding things. But it's just that. It's just the persona. That's all it is. Naturally receiving what comes without being twisted into stupidity by it. So that even when what comes turns out in retrospect to have been false and just a false trail, like I have had many insights and understandings that have arisen in me over the years that have just turned out to be, like God knows where it came from. I have no interest whatsoever. But even that, the seeing of that causes no consternation or no difficulty or no, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I'll never get this right. It's just...
I was so addicted to wanting the experience.
Yes, I
years
know.
And years. But it was interesting it kept me wanting to keep trying.
Yes, but see, that's what I'm saying, right? It doesn't matter that you misunderstand what happens. That really is beside the point. That's why I do very little talking about understanding what happens. I have managed to cobble together a coherent and consistent storyline that kind of explains why it is that this works and why we are as conflicted and stupid as we are. But even that's just a story, and it's not necessary. I concoct that story in order to be able to, it's not that I don't think it's true. I think there's a lot of truth to the story. But I have concocted that not in order to bestow upon you a new understanding of your nature and your relationship with life, but to give you a reason for trying this, right? To give the mind, the human understanding of things, some basis for thinking that this actually might be something that might be helpful to me. So that's not what comes from it, right? That's not the payoff. The understanding is not the payoff. The idea of the way in which things evolve is not the payoff. The feelings of peacefulness and equanimity is not the payoff. The payoff is the elimination of the fear of life, in which all of those things then can be received without undue interference by our fear of life and the whole conglomeration of things that attend that.
I can see that over the course of this last couple of years. It's been slowly dissipating. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, I was talking to the other John this morning about our history and how, I was thinking about how you say we're really alone in this. And at the same time, here we are conversing. And something about conversation. I remember we had this discussion a while back about conversation being like a teacher. And I was thinking about how that has been helpful to me just therapeutically over the years, having somebody tell a story and you feel it. Mm-hmm. And empathy, or these are words you could put to it, but you feel less of that sense of separation. I think that's why those groups were helpful.
That's right. That's right. And of course we are always railing against a sense of separation. And that is why those groups are effective, and they do good work. It's not like, if somebody's bleeding to death, you don't go to them and say, why don't you look at yourself, man, and you won't worry about this. You get bandages and tourniquets and call 911 and stuff, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But I was just thinking about that, if you wanted to maybe talk about the conversation in itself, because that's all we do here. Somebody asked me, what do you do in this retreat? Do you bend your body? Do you sink in hot tubs? And I said, no, we talk.
That's right.
We listen to John talk.
I don't know any other way in which we as human beings can convey possibilities to one another except to, speech is unbelievably powerful. Other creatures have some other creatures have some powers of speech, but nothing to compare to the human power of speech, and thought is speech. Everything we do, music is speech, art is speech. It's all speech. And it is profoundly powerful, the fact that we can form these concepts and so forth and converse with each other and be able thereby to have a feeling of communication, right? It's magic. It really is. It's amazing. But in this case, everything we have accumulated in our conscious mind, we have accumulated from receiving speech and engaging in inner speech. All of that whole apparatus, as far as the conscious understanding of things and so forth, come from speech, from others, from yourself, the agreement with speech, the disagreement with speech, the whole thing. The only contact we have with one another that goes directly to the essence of the persona is speech. So we arrive here together, and most of us and most of the people I speak with so far, although pray God that won't always be the case, are people who come from an arena of speech, which is the spiritual domain. And it takes a lot of speech to overcome that speech. Or so it seems. And conversation is, it's the way we are one creature. This is so obvious to me. I mean, this is something about which I really can't form a hypothesis or a theory. I haven't seen any need to do so, because it's so obvious that we are one creature, that we are all in this together. It's obvious on a gross level. You see that everything that happens in the world affects the entire world. All the actions, all the reactions, all everything that happens in the world affects the whole human creature. And we are one creature. We are the same creature. But because of the circumstances that are necessary for us to take this form and be the witness, scratch that, don't ever let me say witness.
Scratch it again.
And be the observer, the receiver of all of this, we have to take separate form. In order to be conscious of our self as beings, we have to be separate form. Separate. I can't feel directly. Sometimes, I can feel directly what another human being is feeling. Most of the time you can, but you don't recognize it as that because it seems like just a cacophony of craziness, right? But we really can't make the kind of contact that we would like to make in any way other than speech. The only way we can affirm and understand and realize the one creature that is humanity is by talking to one another. If we all fell silent, we would just all fall silent. So, I'm a believer in conversation.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it.
Okay.
It's really good. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for being here, Mike. Thanks for... Helen? Boy, this is... No, I'm fine.
John, there's water right there for you.
I'm okay. Water doesn't really do much good. But thank you. Hi, Helen.
Hi, John. I don't want to go home either. And it's been so amazing, the opportunity to meet with you on the webinar and the worldwide meetings and that's not going to end. It never ends. So, and I wanted to say that it's just incredible to be here face to face and with all the people. And in a way, that's why I came, to see how it was to just live in the body with it. And so many people I've spoken to, and it's so thrilling to see just that we are actually the same. So I've had lovely meetings with Judd, and we sit and talk, and it's so easy, and it's never been easy.
No, it's never been easy before.
It's never been easy. Like that freezing that I said. There's been this like, going, it's so easy, and there's this welcome from here to there and back again.
That's the thing that I hadn't actually noticed before, but what you speak of is really the truth. As the fear begins to dissipate, our ability to speak with one another, it just is freed.
Yeah.
It really is. We were just talking about conversation, but most conversation between human beings is tied and bound and tongue-tied, really, trying to make sure we don't say the wrong thing or say something that's stupid or reveal ourselves to be the idiots that we are. But once that's gone, the only reason that's a problem is because we think it says something about us that means that we're in danger, because we're stupid, because we don't know how to actually communicate for what's present here. And once that's gone, it's much easier to talk to each other.
So much easier.
Nothing on the line here.
So, that's right. That's what we said. There's nothing to show, and there's nothing to fear.
That's right.
And we just sit there and have our lunch.
That's it.
Yeah. It's so cool.
It is cool. You're right.
And
I'm glad you
that
came.
we have come to this.
That we have come to this. Who could have seen this coming, huh? Lita? Hi, Lita.
And I actually have something to show.
You have something to show? This is show and tell?
Show and
Cool.
tell. Show and fear. Okay. But this is, since you've been talking, so I don't know if the DVD is going to get this.
It's upside down, isn't it?
Well, actually, I painted it this way.
Aha.
And this is the first line from Pride and Prejudice. And I just, when I was writing it, when I was painting it, like there, when you, and I'm showing it to you because you keep using this metaphor of the print on the page.
Right.
And the black print on the white page. And one thing I've always seen when I do, sometimes when I'm reading, I just get like looking at the letters and the spaces in between, and I get kind of carried away with that. And they're not, in certain lights, they're not black on white. They're this kind of, like the light sort of dances on it. So that was what I was painting.
Actually, that's very cool. And there's no, it's interesting that the content is not accessible here.
Little bits of it are, though.
Right, little bits of it are, but not so much.
And it's changed a lot
Yeah.
in the way that it got painted, because, like, there's part of the truth there in big capital letters.
Yeah.
This used to be the word good, but when I painted it upside down, now it's poo.
Pooh, yeah. This is really, I like this. It's very nice.
So, if you think it's something that you and Carla would hang somewhere, you have to like it also. But if you think, there's two other paintings that go with it, but we can talk about that afterwards.
Well, thank you very much. This is beautiful. I really like that. That's a very good... See, speech doesn't just take the form that it takes with me, where it's just like one word after the other, yada. This too is speech. this too is speech.
We can out-
And it's especially interesting because it's speech masquerading as speech. You see, it's really cool.
So I don't think I had anything else to say. I just like experiencing it up here. Aside from just talking to you, I hate being filmed. I hate being on tape. And I may order this to see myself later and get to re-experience that fear. But
Or maybe you'll say, "Wow, look at that! I didn't know that."
right. So that's pretty much it. Thank you. Oh, and I do want to say also, like when we were talking yesterday, and I'm so happy I don't have to agree with you. Like, I feel a lot of the time when I come up here, it's like 50-50 when I come up here that we'll agree and laugh and it's a good time, and 50-50 that, like, we just get into this debate that I can't, even when I was working, it's like we just start, and I don't know what it is that draws that out.
It's the same thing with everybody.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant, beside the point.
Well, it would be, except that there's something of me. See, I'm going to agree with you now. Disagree. There's something so deeply me in that experience. In that, because I haven't, not just with you. I've had it with other people where it's like, even when we agree, they'll turn into this debate, and
That's not deeply you, Lita.
No, but
That's this person.
Right, but the thing that's
Right.
causing that to happen, there's something in there that's like.
That's right. And I tell you, what I see to be causing it to happen is the fear.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's all. It's
Right.
the fear.
Yeah.
And it can become quite automatic, right? And it's defensive, right? It's like being sure that you're actually understanding things and that your understanding is true. Mm-hmm. And if it is in contradiction with other understandings, then your understanding is still true. Mm-hmm. It doesn't even require the falsification of others. It's the need to see your understanding to be true. And that's not like a psychological disability.
Right.
That's just the natural...
The force outward.
the natural outcome of the desire to be safe and be free of fear. Mm. It's not a problem. And sometimes, obviously, sometimes you're right and I'm wrong. Not that often, but sometimes.
I'll let you keep thinking that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lita.
Okay, all right.
It's
If anyone
amazing.
wants to see this,
Okay. That was really, really wonderful. I'm really pleased with that. Sasha. Hi.
Hi. Hi. Well, during the days like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Feels like I've got to eat it.
Just like it's one of those things over there. You're going to chew on it. Yeah.
Okay. During the days of this retreat, I felt so peaceful, and just like being. The looking isn't something that I really even feel like I much have to do. It's sort of been done, and just like you said, goes on. But a couple of the nights, which is like half of the nights, I wake up from nightmares, and then I can't sleep, and it's like I just feel like this fear is coming up, and it's nothing new. It's just like I thought I was through that. But, I come here this morning and I feel like this, traumatized child because of the nights are like nightmares. And I guess it's like, from my childhood where they were sometimes like nightmares. And now I wake up and it's like I tell myself it's okay and I'm not, like I do okay, but then I can't sleep. And so anyway, I just wondered, does this process ever end?
Yes.
And how long does it take? Because this has been, for me, going on a long time, these intermittent nightmares, and that was like they stopped when I ran away to India, but when I came back, they started again. You know, it's like the old trauma from the childhood comes up at night.
Yeah, I know. But there's no way, there's no way that I know of to prevent that from happening. It will play itself out. It won't kill you, and it won't ruin you. It'll play itself out. These are thought forms. These are not actual events. These are thought forms. And there is a...
They're fears.
There are fears are thought forms. And there's a great shifting going on within you, within this personality. There's a great unraveling and reconstruction going on. And sometimes you will feel really good, and sometimes you will feel really bad. But the day will come when all of that's gone.
How do you know?
Because I know from my own experience.
Did you have nightmares too?
I don't know if I had nightmares, but I had terrible, terrible experiences.
And you had terrible fears?
Yeah, fears.
And they don't come anymore?
No. No. The only fear that comes now is the fear that I'm going to be late getting to this meeting.
I don't worry about that, because I'm almost always late, and I just hope you will be too, but you never are.
I don't worry about it either. And the day will come when the appearance of fear over silly little things like that will be of no consequence. It doesn't need to be gotten rid of. It doesn't need to be held on to.
I just feel like everybody else here is like, you know, mature adults, and I'm this kid in this adult body. Something's wrong,
I
you
know
know?
you feel that way. I know you feel that way, and the only way you feel that way is because you are not privy to the actual inner experience of all the people here. If you were privy to the inner experience of all of us, you would see that you are the same. You really don't have to worry. You don't even have to worry about worrying. It's so obvious, Sasha, with you. That this process is well underway. The difference in you over the time we've been together is immense. You're on the right track. Everything's going to be fine. And it's not surprising that particularly in an environment like this retreat, which is very focused and very concentrated and so forth, that would provide a welcome place for these terrors to come.
Yeah, I feel like so
forth.
safe up here, you know.
Yeah.
I'm always felt safe up here.
Yeah.
And during the day, I feel really safe and just in this beautiful place, you know. And
You are safe. The feelings about it are beside the point. You are safe. And it all will turn out. Will.
how long did it take for you for the fear to stop coming up?
I don't know. Long time. Long time.
More than 20 years?
No, but you haven't been doing this for 20 years.
No, but I've had the fears coming up
I know,
for 20
but
years.
But this is the end of the
intermittently
fear.
when I wasn't in India.
Yeah, this is toward the end of the fear. This is, you go to India and suppress the fear.
Right, right.
There's
I
no
did.
suppressing the fear here.
No.
And that's therapeutic.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You don't worry. Stay in touch. Okay?
Yeah.
Everything's going to be fine. It's really obvious to me.
Thanks for the reassurance.
Okay?
That's what I needed, I guess.
I guess so.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Okay.
Really. Anybody else? Meg, hi. I remembered your name.
Thanks, Sasha, because she again said what has been going on with me. And, I just find myself crying all over the place and judging that because, well, nobody else is losing it. And, but
Well, Sasha just gave the lie to that.
yeah,
Yeah,
and,
right.
So,
That's true. That's a true statement.
and thank you for helping me with that.
You're very welcome. You know, and it's to be expected. What's happening here as this work proceeds is that the apparatus that has kept these fears and nightmares and so forth away is becoming unable to do so. That's all.
We're
ruining that. We're ruining that whole carefully wrought protection. And it's almost certainly the case. It's too late for you to do anything about it anyway.
I can feel it. I wanted to ask you something about, you were talking the first day about waking up in the middle of the night and not knowing who you are. And throughout my entire life, I've had this. And at certain times, it's plagued me. I was afraid I was schizophrenic. I was, because I wake up and I have no idea of what came. I'm displaced in time. Mm-hmm. I don't know what came before. There's no future. There's no. Yeah. Can you talk? I don't even know if it's related, but you brought it up so many times. I was just wondering about your perspective on that.
If you wake up in the middle of the night and don't know who you are or where you came from or what you're about, see if you can't remember this one thing. To see if you can't touch yourself with your attention. See if you can't, instead of the normal reaction is an outward going, trying desperately to scramble and get some sense of reassemble the persona, right? So that you're no longer bereft of that weight. Just if it happens that it happens, and you think to do this, think to see if you cannot look and see what it feels like to be you. Not what all the terror and fearfulness is, right? Because you're the receiver of that. You're not the cause of it, you're not the victim of it. You're just the receiver of that. So see for just a second if you can't get that taste of that which is receiving that experience of terror and ignorance. That's a time when there's very little between you and you. Mm. So the persona is kind of lost, hasn't assembled itself yet. So there's very little between you and you. And it can be an extremely powerful opportunity.
Has it happened with you?
Oh yeah, that's why I talk about it. Yeah.
I wondered.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank
Try it. See. I mean, you're already doing it, and the outcome is certain. But it can't hurt. Instead of being afflicted by the craziness, to just turn toward yourself. Turn toward the one who is receiving, actually, without effect, receiving those experiences. Okay?
Thank you so much.
I'm really glad you came.
I'm very glad. It's wonderful.
Thank you. So I have to do this dance here in order not to do something really stupid and knock the chair and all that stuff over. Anybody else? Liz? Hi, Liz.
John. Well, two things. One thing is I also have that thing now and then where I wake up in the night and I have no idea who I am or where I am. And it used to frighten me like I was getting Alzheimer's or something. But the last time I did try to look at myself, but it was really hard because I was so scared that I somehow And that happens sometimes when I'm really freaked out. Then it's sort of like there's no space to look at myself.
Yeah. That's the purpose of that freak out, is to prevent you from going there. That's the one place that seems fraught with the greatest danger to this persona. It seems like the one place that you don't ever want to go. So, although in in waking states, it's possible to overcome that by sheer force of will and move attention there. But that's also one of the reasons it skitters away so quickly. So that when there's nothing to you but fear, it's very difficult to do, but it's possible. It is. And the fear, although it seems continuous, isn't. It's not like an unbroken experience in time. It's an experience that has gaps in it. And if you pay attention, you'll see those gaps. And you can take advantage of those gaps to stop a second and see if you can't actually get the feel of yourself.
Okay.
Right? Because it's a trick of perception that makes us think that these experiences are continuous in nature, when actually they are like that.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. And the other thing, I wrote you an email about this, and you did answer it online, and but then towards the end you sort of went in a different direction. So sometimes when I look at myself, I hit this place that I really, it's this sort of like self-loathing, or it's like
that's the disease. That's what that place is. That's the disease. That it feels like self-loathing because it is a kind of denial and rejection of the reality of what you are. Kind of a denial and rejection, for example, of the reality of what the purpose and the purpose of the persona is. It's a denial and rejection of the actual nature of the personality. That's what all that is. It is this very thin, it doesn't feel thin, but it's this very thin layer of keeping everything away. And it feels like self-loathing. That's what the fear is. The fear is self-loathing.
And
it's
it feels
self-hatred.
like it's really me.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
Right.
It's the disease. But it's really quite a gift to see that self-loathing is present. It's quite a gift. Most of the time that's hidden.
Well, my mind will throw up a lot of reasons for it, like
Right. Sure.
I'm like this and I'm like
right,
that.
Right,
and,
sure. But
so it has a lot
it
of
appears
collaboration.
before the reasons for it appear. The reasons appear in order to put it in its place
I see.
and make it manageable and understandable.
It's
It's because I'm such a bad person. It's because I've done bad things,
right.
and that makes it manageable. But that'll pass.
Okay, so can you just say this one more time, because my mind just kind of went blank when you said this is the disease. And what did you say when my mind just clicked off when I said exactly that, just that. I hit that. You said.
When you said.
When I said I hit the self-loathing,
Right.
You said this is a trick of the mind. And I missed the next thing you said because
Well, I don't know what the next thing I said, but the self-loathing is the nature of the disease. It's a form of the fear. It's a form of because it's a hatred of life. And there's
now I
a
get it.
conflation
Okay.
of you and life that is actually the case, right? That conflation is actually the case because there is nothing between you and your life. Your life is intimately inseparable from you. Okay? But the fear has created an illusion of separation between you and your life. And I don't remember where I was going to go, but that's what happens.
And it feels so personal.
It's necessary because it's trying to protect you. It is personal. It's personality. It is the very stuff of personality to do whatever needs to be done to keep you away from there. Really.
Okay.
If you're there, you're not watching out for the next thing that's incoming. You're not trying to make yourself better. You're not trying to improve yourself and get rid of the bad things and the stupid things and the ignorance. If you're there, you're not doing any of that.
You mean if you're where? If you're looking at yourself?
If you're looking at yourself, you're not, for that moment, you're not doing any of that. None of that. So it's the natural reaction of the persona to say, wait a minute, don't come here, go there. What are you doing? Don't you know they're going to eat you up out there because you deserve it.
Yeah.
And what that produces is a hatred of life. That the life which is inseparable from you is afflicted with a hatred of itself because of its danger, because of its treachery, because of its untrustworthiness, because of its failure to deliver what it promises, because of the great expectation that it's going to kill you in the end, because of all of those things. And all of these things are held in the apparatus of personality, trying desperately to find an escape from it, trying desperately to find an escape from life, because life is the problem. Okay? And the fact is, right, that's all made up. The thing that produces the illusion of separation is this layer of fearfulness and discontent and angst and so forth that is ever there. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but it's always there, always churning, always, generating energy for this work.
Right, and then there's all this collaboration of reason for it.
Right, exactly. So, which of course is part of the reason why there's no point to trying to persuade the persona that it's on the wrong track.
Right.
We've tried that. That's all we've ever tried. And there's no point to it because that just gets swallowed up in the entire project of self-protection that is going on. It's just one more thing to be dealt with and taken care of and put in its place. And so forth.
Right. Just, yeah, got it. Yeah.
So the effects on the persona are a long time coming sometimes because there's a whole momentum to them. There's a momentum and a mutual requirement that each of these pieces be in place, lest the whole thing falls apart, right?
Right.
But then when the fear begins to diminish, these things just begin to kind of fall away, and nothing bad happens. You might not even notice they're gone. And new structures begin to kind of form and take their shape, and of course I'm talking about something that's extremely not material, extremely immaterial, so I'm using metaphor and so forth and not trying to say that there's an actual structure, but there is, there's an apparatus there. And it begins to form new characteristics, new responses, new habitual behavior patterns, new things of that kind which are more in keeping with the reality of things, which is that everything that comes in is welcome. Not welcome like
uninvited.
Right, not welcome like uninvited, right? But like, wow, look at that, man.
Not like a state we create of welcoming.
No, right. Not like that. It's just the case.
Right.
Yeah, it's just the case. That's what we do here. We receive all of this experience that comes in seemingly from outside. That's what we do. That's the only thing that we do. And that is is distorted and crippled by this fearfulness that translates into a fear of life, a hatred of life, a self-loathing.
Yeah.
You know, life is ugly and mean and not to be trusted,
So
treacherous.
All those things.
Yeah, right. And since the case is that there is no separation between you and your life, since that is the case,
Yeah.
it seems like to make that happen requires some conflation, some artificial joining together of them, right?
Right.
And so that I am not my life, but I am my life because I hate that and I hate me.
Uh-huh.
And it's all just stupid stuff that you can't be talked out of, but that will just vanish when its cause vanishes. See, its cause is not ignorance. Ignorance is the effect of the cause.
That's where that's where you diverge with Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
Because they say it's ignorance.
Yes,
The
that's
cause.
right. I diverge from Buddhism, but as I've said, I have a great regard
No,
for
I
it.
understand that, but it's just that Buddhism says
Yeah.
ignorance is the cause.
That's right.
Right. But thank you very much, John.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for the retreat.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I got one more here, which is in the form of an anonymous note. Good morning, John. Thanks for a great retreat. Can you speak this morning about the technique of asking who wants to awaken, who is confused, who is anxious, etc., and then looking back to find that I, or who is, asking the question. And then, and then turning inward to look. Is that a useful technique? Moving us in the right direction. Thank you. Well, I don't know. It could be. I mean, I didn't have much luck with that. When as I have said, I have in my abject despair, I turned to Ramana, and not as a guru or anything like that, but just to actually, as I've continued to say, what I thought was going to happen was that I would be cured of this affliction of the idea that there was something that could be done about human suffering. I thought that I would once and for all put the nail in the coffin of that stupid idea, and then I wouldn't be bothered by it, and drawn to it and so forth. And of course, it is Ramana's, when Ramana spoke with people, he always came back to this who question. He would come back to the question, for whom is this pleasure? For whom is this bliss? For whom is this ignorance? For whom is this pain? For whom is this confusion? For whom is whatever in the world is happening? In other words, who experiences this? Now, I think we have this is really beside the point, because what we're stuck with is the translation itself. But I don't really have any idea what the language was or what actually was being communicated by Ramana, which ended up being translated to who am I? I mean, I know that the phrase that is translated into who am I is nan-yar, and I don't know anything other than that, and I don't know what that means, and I don't know what that pronoun denotes in the language that Ramana was speaking in. But that's beside the point, because what we have is who am I? For whom is this? For whom is that? For whom is the other thing? And I tried that when I first approached this project to try to clear myself of the hope that human life could be free of misery and stupidity. And I tried that, and I could see I could see I could see what he was trying to get at, or what I thought he was trying to get at, but I could never get beyond the who being the personality. It never led me anywhere but back to the person itself. You know, maybe the bare bones of the person, but it never got me anywhere but to the person. But the only thing that counts, there is no, like, there's no, the only thing that counts is the looking. And this is on the other side of the looking. I'm speaking from the other side of the looking, after the attempt to use who am I as a means to do what Ramana was asking, after I laugh because you could not believe how stupid I was in my attempts to try to understand and do what Ramana wanted me to do. But after all of that, right, the seriousness of my intent seems to have carried me home. And so I'm speaking from there, not from the other side when you're approaching the looking, trying to find a way in. So what counts is the looking. But I didn't know that when I was trying to say for whom is this and for whom is that. So I didn't have that to be helpful to me where you do. So it may well be that in the case of someone who actually has a sense of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, that will turn attention inward, and it will bring you to the brink of being able to move attention directly to the experience of your natural state. But I don't know that that's the case. I have no idea that that will work. And I have no idea that anything in particular, other than the seriousness of your intent to get the direct contact with the reality of your nature, I have no idea that anything whatsoever will serve that intent other than looking itself. But it may. Really. And since the seriousness of your intent, and since your intent is now informed with a sense of what it is you intend to do, and the seriousness of your intent is the important thing, I suspect that anything you do that you believe will bring you inward enough to make that final move into the reality of your nature will work. Anything, pretty much. So, I hope that answers that question. Now, it's my turn. And I don't have any great wisdom to bestow on you at the end of this retreat, and I'm not going to try to. I'm going to try to report to you a little bit of my own experience with the retreat. I set out, as I said in the first meeting, or the second meeting rather, I set out this year in this retreat to turn away from and leave behind the spiritual vernacular in speaking this work, in bringing this work to people. I explained at some length why I sought to do that, and that it was not like a rejection of the usefulness and the beauty of spiritual discourse, but it was because it in my experience, had that what is being spoken of in the spiritual domain, and what has been spoken of in the spiritual domain for many thousands of years, has produced within those of us who are familiar with the spiritual domain a kind of jargon. What began as fresh and exciting and unexpectedly wild insights and understandings has become jargon for us. Now, jargon is not a bad thing. Jargon is a kind of a vernacular in which complicated and complicated but dependably stable things are communicated between those who are initiated into the jargon. So that there's jargon in science, there's jargon in technology, there's jargon in religion, there's jargon in cooking, there's jargon in painting, there's jargon in all human activities in which words which are close to what we're talking about are put to use to hold a whole universe of understanding about that particular thing that we're talking about without having to constantly reinvent the wheel and get to the point. But it has produced within us this jargon in which when I say self, the spiritually educated mind cannot help but see it as the self of spiritual aspiration and spiritual discourse. So when I remember it wasn't long ago that I was agonizing because I finally decided that I would ignore it because the pronoun whatever it is, yourself, contains the word self, and I could see that that was tripping people up because of the power of that this jargon has on our ability to hear what's being said. We are accustomed to the fact that self means something, that consciousness means something, that awareness means something, that fear means something more than fear, that misunderstanding means something, that there is that pretty much everything we talk about in this context has a subtext that is not immediately present in the conscious mind of the person who's hearing what I'm saying. And that subtext will hijack what I'm trying to get to, and then we're going around in circles with me trying to tell you, oh no, that's not it, it's this, something else. And I finally came to see what I had suspected to be the case, which is that the only way really to talk about this effectively, especially if I have the opportunity to move out of the spiritual ghetto, that the only way to speak effectively with people about this is to speak about it without using those jargon words and phrases. It's not that I despise spiritual discourse. It's not that I think that it is wrong and should not be attended to and nobody should ever think about those things. It's just that it has nothing whatsoever to do with what I'm talking about. But it seems to, because I'm talking about the eradication of human misery, because I'm talking about the inner experience of being human. So it seems to fit into some spiritual realm in which there's a congruence of the meaning of words over a wide range of spiritual practices. It doesn't matter whether you're doing pranayama or you're doing mindfulness meditation or you're doing satsang and trying to stop and be silent. There are certain words and phrases and ways of looking at things that you know to be spiritual in nature, and you know what they mean. So if I say, look at self, you immediately know what I'm talking about, which is the self of all and true self and that whole array of things, but it's not. And that stuff has nothing to do with the self I talk about. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different universe of human discourse from this. So, it became clear to me that I had to find a way to talk about this without resort to spiritual jargon, and actually avoiding the triggering of a spiritual response to what I'm saying. And in seeing that to be the case, I saw, well, this is not going to be easy at all. This is hard. This is not like just being able to get up there and, riff on things. This is hard. It's hard. It's hard to speak about these things. And the fact that it's hard to speak about these things is one of the reasons why we have become so enamored with spiritual concepts and spiritual understandings and spiritual ways of explaining to us what these things are. But that doesn't help us here. We're on our own here. We're singularity, on our own. The spiritual understandings, the non-spiritual understandings, the entire content of the personal consciousness is of no use to us. Our whole past is no use to us. We have to start fresh with a clean slate. So I became determined that and over the last couple of years I've been trying very hard to wean myself and to get myself away from resort to spiritual matters and things like that, and just actually the day the retreat began, I decided, well, this is going to be the time. This is going to be the turning point when I am going to actually start not speaking spiritual. So that's what I talked about in the first meeting. And I think I've done pretty good. I'm not completely satisfied with the progress I've made so far, but I think I've done pretty good. But I want you to understand that my rejection of the spiritual domain, and especially the domain of Advaita Vedanta, that my rejection of that domain as being congruent or consistent with what it is that I am trying to communicate is not a rejection of the value of that domain. And it's not a rejection of the practitioners in that domain. I have no opinion whatsoever about that. My experience in that domain is in the past. I don't have I don't have the time and energy available to think about those things, to imagine what one teacher or another teacher, or what one teaching or another teaching might actually be getting at. Because I haven't been involved in that domain for some time. But I am not trying to disrespect any of the earnest and well-intended human attempts to understand things and to move forward. I am in constant awe of our millennia-long earnest attempts to find a way to make human life bearable, to make human life what it should be. I am in awe of it, and I am grateful beyond words for it. It is in that domain, after all, that it first occurred to me that it might be possible to do something actually to rid ourselves of this misery of being human. It is in that domain that I attacked the problem of trying to discard the idea that there's anything that we can do to deal with the misery of being human. It's in that domain that the intent formed within me to prove the case one way or the other by trying to follow the advice that appears within that domain. It was in that domain that I sat on my bunk and instructed ego to die. It's in that domain that I did all the stupid things that I did trying desperately just to be satisfied that I had done what Ramana was suggesting we do so that I could forget about this whole thing. It was from that domain that I come to you. And I am very, very exquisitely aware of that, of the effect my time in the spiritual domain has had on me, and it was, it's said among the Buddhists, among some Buddhists, that the greatest luck that any human being could ever have is just to hear the word enlightenment. Just to hear the word enlightenment. And I can see why that would be seen to be the case. Because prior to hearing the word enlightenment, the idea of actually solving the human predicament isn't even going to arise. It's not even going to arise. So I want to make it very plain that just as I don't discard and disrespect and despise say the steam engine and the coal-burning steam engine. I don't despise it. I see the role that it played in the development of our capacity to free ourselves from a lot of the kind of day-to-day burden of doing things and making things happen and being unable to do things and build things and so forth. But I would not want to have a steam engine in my backyard, and I don't think a steam engine would be of any use to me now. A steam engine just was the first thing that came to mind. You can plug in anything that you wish into that. Just as I don't have I don't despise or disrespect or discard the work of Copernicus, who first showed us that the earth was not at the center of the universe because he falsely believed that the sun was the center of the universe. But I don't see any point to that belief now. And it does me it's of no use to me now. It has brought us, without that insight, we would not have freed ourselves of the idea that the earth is the center of the universe, even though it was wrong, even though it was a false premise. I honor Copernicus. I see the great value that insight had on the development of human knowledge and the development of the human capacity to receive the wild wonder of existence. And in the same way, I don't discard and turn my back on the thousands of years of human effort to hold some understanding of the nature of reality and the way out of the trap, because some have escaped. The ones who have brought us these teachings are ones who have escaped. And the fact that they may not have fully understood how that occurred is beside the point. We wouldn't even think escape was possible were it not for that. So I'm just saying, I love human. Really. I love us all. I love all our stupidity. I love all the wrong turnings we made. I love all the incredible determination to keep going. But none of that has any place here. That's like reading about the Copernicus and Galileo and reading about Robert Fulton and the steam engine and saying, wow, that was a good thing. Or Lindbergh flying across the Atlantic. Oh, that was amazing. and seeing what all went into that. That's the place that stuff belongs. In a honoring and understanding of the incredible creature this human creature actually is. But I tell you, none of that is of any use to you. None of it. Not steam engines, not flying across the Atlantic, not Copernicus's belief in the heliocentric universe. None of that is any use to you. None of that can help you at all. Neither can the spiritual insights and understandings be of any use to you here. You are alone. You are on your own. Nothing that you think to be the case is necessarily the case. The only thing that you know absolutely for certain is that you are. Look there. Bring your attention there, and everything will come out right. I promise. Okay? Okay. I'm going to go. I will be back later, but I'm going to go. The other thing is that I love you all beyond belief. You have given me so much in this time together. And I'm very grateful to you. And I'm really, really grateful for the willingness that appears within people actually to consider this ridiculous idea that I bring to you. So thank you. I'll see you everywhere. Enjoy yourself. Above all, enjoy yourself.